Thanks for joining us for Election 2019, the Las Cruces City Council District 1 Forum. I'm Fred Martino. Thanks to the NAACP, PFLAG, and the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico for co-sponsoring this event. Our format is simple. Candidates have up to 1 minute to answer each question, and they should not mention any opponent in their answer. The candidates joining us in ballot order are Kasandra Gandara and Shelly Nichols-Shaw. And joining me from the League of Women Voters, Eileen Van Wee. Eileen, great to have you here.
It's nice to be here, and I want to say thanks to the KRWG staff for all the programming you're doing to help us voters get prepared to go to the polls.
Well, we thank you for the partnership. Wouldn't be possible without the League. And our first question, again in ballot order, goes to Councilor Gandara, and it is, what is your position on raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for having me. Basically, I would want to look at all the data, that the pros and cons in terms of how it will affect our small business. As you know, our small business is our heart and soul of Las Cruces, and frankly, I'm not too sure that our small business can afford to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, I know that given, as a licensed social worker, that many of our people, our impoverished community, would really need that boost, but I quite frankly don't think that from where it is today to $15 an hour, would we be successful in maintaining the small businesses that we currently have.
Okay, Ms. Nichols-Shaw.
Well, as a small business owner, I think that the hike is quite high. I've looked at some of the data that I've been able to find, and I don't think it supports providing that type of wage. Providing that type of wage also increases the other expenses that people have because the expense is passed on to the customers. So if we break it up, we're only addressing, we might be raising income, but we're not really raising the living income that people have.
Presence matters to the LGBT community constituents. How would you support the LGBT community organizations and events as a city councilor?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
Presence matters to the LGBT constituents. How would you support LGBT community organizations and events as a city councilor? Ms. Nichols-Shaw.
Well, I believe that everybody matters, and in our community, you know, I have relatives that are of the LGBT community, and I believe that they need to be supported. How would I support them? Attending different events, helping plan different events, making sure that everybody's rights are being upheld, as well as making sure that discrimination and retaliation doesn't occur.
Thank you. Councilor Gandara?
Yes, thank you, Eileen, for the question. Specifically, I'm a very busy counselor. I go to many events. I've sponsored resolutions. I actually facilitate and form the Suicide Prevention Task Force. As you know, suicide is very high in our LGBTQ community, and it gives us an opportunity to capacity build, meaning provide training on QPR, which is question, persuade, and respond, or refer out. I also facilitate a coalition against bullying group. This group is a city-county partnership with non-governmental entities and governmental entities that come together and really talk out what are the current issues that are plaguing our schools and our community, and really coming up with strategies and solutions for those issues. And so it would continue to be like attending events, but also sponsoring very key resolutions and such. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Gandara, the next question deals with the environment. What are your ideas for addressing projected water shortages?
Good question. I think currently with the city, water is a very important issue, and we need to make sure that with the changes that we've made with the meters, they are now capturing when we have certain water that is being released without unintended water, right? And so I think being able to provide that funding source is important, but also capturing stormwater drainage, I think, is another way that we should capture and ensure that we are doing what we can to create the kind of environment and keep water at the forefront, if you will.
Ms. Nichols-Shaw.
Well, I believe that one of the things that we need to first do is look at how we're using it. I've seen so many times that in our city streets, the city is the one who has water pouring out into the streets versus the residents. I do believe in having preventive measures and using watering plans. I also believe that we need to recapture some of the water that's being lost, to be able to recycle. I don't see any reason why we can't recycle some of the water, and I believe it's called gray water, and reuse it to water some of the city's properties and what have you, and as well as residents.
Ms. Nichols-Shaw, how best should the city handle ongoing immigration issues?
I think that that's been something that we have faced since the beginning of time. And I believe that we need to, welcome people, different people into our community. We have so many different people here. My family immigrated, others have too. And I think it's one of those things that we just need to address. I'm not sure how to say this. I think that we need to make sure that we're open and invited, and especially for following our own laws that are already established to allow people in to our country. We've got the laws there. I think some of them could be tweaked. I don't think they're perfect, but they're there for our protection as well as the protection of others. And so we need to make sure that they're being properly utilized and not discriminated against.
Thank you. Councilor Gandara?
Thank you. I definitely feel we need immigration reform. We have many mixed status families in our community, and I just can't imagine how they're living today in fear. That creates a lot of issues for us in terms of ensuring that they're getting proper services, if there's domestic violence, that they're reaching out to law enforcement when they need to. And so definitely immigration reform, but I've been proud of the things that we've done as a city to welcome our the people and women and children and just people in general from other countries. And we need to continue to, in my mind, hold the armory like we have currently, and just be ready if we have an influx of our immigrants coming in, and just welcoming them and ensuring that we're getting them out into their receiving homes as we've done.
Thank you.
Councilor Gandara, our next question: what steps, if any, would you take to help the city curb actual and potential gun violence?
Well, I think there's some root causes to gun violence, and unfortunately we've had our share of them here in our community. I certainly have asked that we have specific council meetings addressing gun violence and mental illness, and I think we have to ensure that we have the proper quality of services, enough services to meet those issues as it relates to mental health, substance abuse, ensuring that we put a lot of preventative programs in place. We have recently, as you know, sent a resolution up to our state legislators asking for reform with the universal background checks, ensuring that there's a period of time that when people go and want to purchase a gun, that there's a period of time that one must wait so that the checks can occur. I definitely feel tying up those gaps that make it difficult for people.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Nichols-Shaw.
Could you please repeat the question?
Yes. What steps, if any, would you take to help the city curb actual and potential gun violence?
One of the first things I would think that we need to do is provide our police force with proper equipment. We have so many times violence occurs because people feel scared. We also need to educate the public of what guns really do. We have, I'm sorry, I'm tongue-tied. I believe what we need to provide proper procedures at our schools to make sure that guns aren't taken into the schools. I believe what we also need to, provide, make sure that we have the laws in place so that people who have mental illness aren't getting hold of the guns, and that gangs are identified so that we can monitor them better. I think that, my father used to have a saying that anybody who wants to get into a locked room will do it. We just need to make sure that they are.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Nichols-Shaw, what part can the city play in addressing current problems aggravated by climate change and in planning for our best future?
What part do we play?
What part can the city play?
Oh, I think one of the things that we can do is help by creating more urban gardens and urban type forests. We've got a lot of areas that we need shade in this area because the heat does affect us so drastically. We need replanting different plants so that when people are trying to utilize and use less energy, such as vehicles, and they're trying to walk or try to ride bicycles, that they're able to have not be out in the heat quite so often. One of the things that we also need to do is, I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question?
Pardon? Pardon?
Could you please repeat the question?
What part can the city play in addressing current problems aggravated by climate change and in planning for our best future?
I think also our city needs to play the part of making sure that the resources that we are utilizing and the equipment is sound, and we be using our resources smartly.
Thank you. Councilor Gandara?
Thank you for the question. Definitely we need to continue to reduce our carbon footprint. Currently we are in the process of purchasing 5 electric buses. I think that will be so amazing. As you know, they produce a lot of greenhouse gases, and that is one way that we can reduce that. We also have plans to purchase vehicles that the staff or the workers are using. That will also be something that is important. We'll need to continue to work on solar panels, putting more solar panels in our city buildings. We currently at our wastewater facility have a very nice facility that has used those gases and turned it into that's providing power to that particular facility. So we just need to continue to move in those steps and ensure that we are taking this very seriously. Thank you.
Councilor Gandara, how best can the city address the need for more affordable housing?
Very good question. So I facilitate a affordable housing committee, and we are in about 7,000 plus in need of multifamily dwellings to include single-family dwellings. And so what we've done is we've established a policy review committee that looks specifically at addressing those issues, ensuring that we're working smartly with private-public partnerships. Currently, what I'm really excited about is a few residential houses that the city has purchased to turn into affordable housing. One example is one in Mesquite Historic District, where it had been abandoned for several years. And I'm very excited about what really that can do as we move forward, is looking at those abandoned buildings and working with current landlords or property owners and getting them up and running as affordable housing.
Okay, Ms. Nichols-Shaw.
Well, I think one of the things that we can do is utilize some of the homes that we already have. So many of the properties here in Las Cruces that have been either halfway abandoned or not kept up, we need to rebuild them and to utilize them to help the public. We have so many issues that of homeless who are needed of housing. We have issues of, like I said, of the homes falling down, especially in the Mesquite district area. We could be using those properties to help build some of the homes and helping train the community and teach skills for people how to help take care of them. We have there's also, I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question?
I'm sorry, we're almost out of time on that question.
Great.
Any final?
I just think that we need to look at that and see what the people's needs really are.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Nichols-Shaw, how will you work to increase job opportunities for your constituents?
I'm sorry?
How will you work to increase job opportunities for your constituents?
Well, I think that's a very good question, especially being a small business owner. I think that we need to make sure that not only that there's jobs available, but that the businesses have resources to help build their own employee force. Many times, we've had a lot of businesses close lately, and we need to look at why are they closing. Is it because the city is making it very, very difficult to get permits and to open up businesses or to keep them open? Or is it because our employees don't have the proper training? There's a lot of different reasons that we need, or things that we can do to help our community. And I know in my case, my business was closed because of the city's actions, which doesn't help employees.
Okay. Councilor Gandara?
I think it's important to diversify our economy. We want to continue with our collaborative partners, which are like Mavita and Wes and SCORE, that assists our small business or potential entrepreneurs, right? Things like working to have these boot camps and different events that will entice folks to come in and assist them in the process. We want to use tools like our LEDA, our TID, our ACD, which is the Arts and Cultural District, and being able to use that in the creative economy, especially the importance of like a live well. I made mention earlier about the abandoned building. That would be a wonderful space for artists, like an artisan sort of workspace where they live and work, and also looking into opportunity zones. I think that's really important in our current situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Gandara, what are the biggest needs for new or improved recreational facilities in the city, if any?
Biggest needs, that's a good one. I think with our GeoBond and the exciting things that are happening with the trails and improving our infrastructure in terms of a nice East Mesa campus with soccer and baseball and fields to include the competitive pool. One of the things that is really very important to me is equity, ensuring that all our kids, in spite of where they sit on that socioeconomic status, have that access that is important for their own quality of life and their family's quality of life. And so in terms of other needs that I think that we need to be focusing on is a wide range of activities for the kids, such as a skate park in all the areas, but ensuring that all kids have access to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Nichols-Shaw.
I agree that we need more recreational activities in the community, but we need to make sure that they are available to every resident. So many of our residents live below the poverty line, and what sources are available are not accessible because of funds. The city can play a part in this by providing different recreation centers for our community, including possibly taking over the bowling alley and making that available so that our people who have special needs and others aren't having to drive to Deming or El Paso to be able to participate in our community. We also are in need of Apodaca Park swimming pool revitalized because it has been in such disrepair for so long. So many of our community areas don't have any resources at all, that I think it's kind of counterproductive to be making these giant pools in one area, but not making sure each community area has what they need.
Ms. Nichols-Shaw, what can the city do to serve its disabled citizens better?
You've touched something very dear to my heart. As a special ed teacher, elementary ed, early childhood, and English language teacher, I have worked with special ed population all my life, especially since I have my own disabilities. One of the things that we need to do is to make every building, every sidewalk, every facility accessible. One of the things I've raised for the last 6 years are the lack of accessibility issues in our community. And when we don't include people who have disabilities, because the national average is 18%. It's been estimated here that we have over 25% of our population that have disabilities. And it's partly because we're not being included. We don't have interpreters or people who can translate so that, ready and available, so people are feel welcome to join the city council meetings and other meetings. Or the accessibility. I went to the county's Democracy Day recently, and they had the platform in the middle of the field versus on the edge, where people had accessibility, and that's just not right.
Councilor Gandara?
Thank you. Access to me is really important. I think the city has done with, developing a board, a coordinator to address those issues. I think the legal department in their peak performance has had this as an objective and a goal to ensure that they are looking at that all city facilities are completely compliant, just always improving access. And so one of the things that I'm currently working on with our legal department is being able to live stream our city council meetings, but also allow for people to type up questions, and then those questions be answered in a very timely manner. And so in terms of giving people opportunity, they don't necessarily have to go to council because that might be difficult for them, transporting, getting transportation over to them. But being able to do that in the privacy of their home is something that I'm working on. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Gandara, should the city help to fund the opening of a crisis triage center to help the community with mental health emergencies?
Yes. And yes, as a licensed social worker and working with Child Protective Services for almost 30 years, I see the importance of a crisis triage center as something that has been really near and dear to me, and it's something that I continue to work with the county manager and the city manager and at the state with the legislators, ensuring that we have the appropriate assessments to ensure that this is the appropriate way to go. I'm deeply concerned about the number of hours that our law enforcement officers are taking when they take our constituencies, our citizenry up to the hospital and sit there idle for hours just to determine whether they're a threat to themselves or others. That isn't the best use of their resources or our resources in their time. And so I think a crisis triage center would be appropriate at this point in time. And I think that given the TALSHARE funding and what can be made available, we'd be able to get that up and running. Thank you.
Ms. Nichols-Shaw.
Yes, I believe the answer to both questions is also yes. I've talked with some of the county and city officials concerning this matter, and they have different viewpoints of why it's not open. The thing I'm concerned about is that the closest basically center is where people are taken if they're arrested or what have you because of different issues, mental issues, is up to the north. We have nothing here in the south really for people to get that emergency help. We need to have people who are trained to work with the public. We need to train our police personnel. We need to train city workers to help be able to recognize when somebody is in a crisis. It's something that we all need to understand, that kind of as a part of our universal design of services, not just as, you know, an individual person who has a mental illness that they may need help, but there's also other people. I'm sorry, I realize I ran out of time, so I'll stop.
Well, thank you so much, and we want to thank both of the candidates in District 1. We have run out of time for our District 1 forum. We appreciate you joining us, and we thank our partners at the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico, NAACP, and PFLAG. I'm Fred Martino. Stay tuned. District 2 is coming up next.